Sounds good.
So, okay, let's hope we're recording. Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kabrda. I work as a software engineer at Red Hat, and one of the projects that I'm working on is called DevAssistant. So today I'd like to tell you what DevAssistant is, how it works internally, and also externally for you as a user. I'd like to show you the benefits that DevAssistant can have for you. And I'll also talk a bit about DevAssistant future and the things that we are planning for future releases. The future features are going to be like mixed in line with the other stuff so that it all makes sense and it's like connected. So let's get started. Oh, by the way, I have DevAssistant stickers. For those of you who want, I'll just send them around the room. And excuse me, I need to show them on the video. These are DevAssistant stickers, and you're not here, and you're not getting one. Yeah, that was hard. Sorry. Sorry. So, what is DevAssistant? The motto on our webpage says, I think it says DevAssistant. It assists developers, right? Something like that. So this is what we do. DevAssistant is just a tool for all developers. It's like a general purpose tool that should be able to do pretty much anything. The reason why we created DevAssistant was basically that we wanted to have a project that would allow us to create new environments with single command on command line, or just clicking few buttons and checkboxes in GUI, and that would be it. So this is one of the purposes of DevAssistant. This was the original purpose why we created DevAssistant. Since then, it's kind of grown, and it's like it really became like a general purpose tool. We have lots of other like use cases and lots of other features. So this is like a short list of stuff that DevAssistant can do right now. DevAssistant can install dependencies. Right now we have hooks to install RPM dependencies on RPM-based distros. We also install dependencies on Arch Linux, and we can also install dependencies from some of the upstream package managers, currently from Python's PyPI and RubyGems, and something more.
NPM.
And Node.js and NPM. Yeah. It's good, so we have it. Right. We can so DevAssistant scaffolds source code for new projects. This is actually the biggest part of the base use case that we started with, and it's actually the easiest one, right? So you just have like a templates of source code, and user tells you that he wants to create a project of this name, so you just basically go through the template and substitute some things, and this is really pretty easy. What's more complicated is, for example, work with source code management tools and remote repos. So right now, DevAssistant can, for example, create GitHub repos. So when you're creating a new project, you just do --GitHub, and it will create new GitHub repo for your project and push your source code there. It also, for most of the project, it also automatically initializes Git repo in your source tree. So this is all automated. It can also fork repos on GitHub, and I use this all the time because, like myself, I work as a package maintainer. So lots of times I'm creating a package, and for example, test is failing. So I want to fix it. So first I need to go to GitHub, click the button to fork, wait to fork it, then I need to copy the URL and actually go to command line and say git clone, blah, blah, blah. So with DevAssistant, I can do this in a single line, which is quite nice. And DevAssistant can do pretty much anything else. It can basically do anything that you can do on command line or in Python code, so that's pretty much anything. assuming that someone actually teaches DevAssistant to do that. By this, I mean that we have a sort of plugin architecture, and these plugins tell DevAssistant what to do. So if you don't have a plugin, you don't have the functionality, right? So some examples. This example is for creating a new Django project. The way it works is that you start with this binary. We have DA, we also have DevAssistant. DA is just like a shortcut to type it quickly. Now, if you don't know how DevAssistant works, so how can you guess that it's this? So the way it works is the way people are supposed and they should work with DevAssistant is that they should say DA --help. And it will show them that they can create projects, modify projects, work on existing projects, something like that. So if you want to create a project, you see create. So you say, okay, I want to create a project. So you write DA create --help. And it shows you that you can create Ruby projects, Python projects, C projects. So you choose Python. And then again you write DA create Python --help, etc., etc. When you get to like what I personally call leaf assistant, leaf meaning that it has no sub-assistants. These Python and Django we call assistants, right? Question?
Do you have that completion?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we.
But you have to install from RPM. We also have DevAssistant on Python package index because it's pure Python package. But if you install it from there, there's no way for us to install bash completion script.
Gotcha.
But we do have it yet. And also the bash completion script is like very general, and it can also pick up new plugins. If you install a new plugin, it will automatically pick it up and show it to you. So, yeah. So Python and Django, in our terminology, are assistants. These are the plugins that someone writes and someone else uses. So when you come to a leaf assistant, that is assistant that doesn't have any sub-assistants, help shows you some arguments that you can actually use to run this assistant. So you can say, I want this project to have name. Okay, this is maybe not the best example, but name is name. And you can also say, for Django, we added Docker support. This is like a new feature in the newest release of DevAssistant. Only Django Assistant has it so far. But what this does is that DevAssistant will basically create a Docker file for your project, and it will also build the Docker image and tell you this is the image you can use. Cool. And there are also more goodies related to this. I will show you on the next slide. And the last argument, this is like Python related only. This says, this tells the assistant to start a virtual env, which is like a Python
change root.
Yeah, it's sort of a change root, but like it only uses the extensions that you install in the change root, but it uses the system Python. So Python developers use this all the time and they like it, so we added the options. So you created your project using that line on the slide before, and now you want to work with it. For working with existing project, we have this word that is called modify. I've been over this. Like, if someone has a better name for this, please suggest.
Edit?
Change.
Use?
Yeah. So the thing is that this this is supposed to be like, you have an existing project and you can do pretty much anything with it. You can like add new sources, for example. Other use cases are like running the project, creating a GitHub repo for it. So it's like I need a really general word for this. So I accept any suggestions. So change might be good. What were the other suggestions?
Use.
Use.
Edit.
Edit.
What about open?
Open? That wouldn't really work like for adding new sources, for example, I think.
Why don't you split it in like
The open project?
stuff that has the same name?
Yeah, I guess we can split it too, but like we also have like 4 of these words already. So adding new might be like really, you know, people wouldn't be sure like where their use case. So we want to have like 1 word for just working with existing projects.
So like, is this analogous to using a virtual env in Python? So you enter the virtual env and leave it after some point where it destroys the environment you need to have? Is it comparable to that? Or is it something completely different?
I will go through this and explain it fully. So the way it works, so let's go with modify for now. We named it modify originally because it was supposed to just modify the sources of the current project. So this is like sort of historical reason. So again, if you didn't know how to construct this command line call, you would just go da:help. You would see that modify helps you working with existing projects. You would go da modify --help. It will show you that you can do something with Docker with existing projects. And Docker has one subassistant that is called develop. The way the develop subassistant works is that it looks at the Docker file in your project source directory, and it tries to guess some reasonable defaults with which it starts the container. So, and if you also pass the --reuse image argument, it doesn't rebuild the image, but it uses an existing image on your system. So you can, for example, modify the image yourself, and like then you can just throw it away by not specifying it, and DevAssistant will rebuild the image like a fresh image for you. So what this does is that it rebuilds the image if needed. It starts up the container, and it tells you IP address of the container. So if you're, for example, developing a web application, you can type the address into your web browser and directly see what is going on in your web application. The nice thing about it is that it mounts the source code into certain location in the image, so that you actually modify the source code locally on your system, and the changes are immediately available in the Docker container. So you have all your editors. You don't actually have to like go into the container to edit the source code. You edit source code like in the bash on your system. You open up bash or Eclipse or anything that you need, and the changes are immediately available in the container, which is, I believe, the way to use Docker. Correct me if I'm wrong. Are there questions for this? Okay. So this is another example of how you can use the modify word for creating GitHub repo. So if you run this in the project directory, what it will do is that it will create a repo on GitHub and push the sources there. This should be pretty self-explanatory. The way DevAssistant works with GitHub repos is that, or GitHub in general, is that the first time you work with it, it creates some authentication tokens and stores them in your user's Git config. So basically, you only need to provide your GitHub password for the first time, and then it will do everything automatically without you needing to input anything.
Now, why you are asking for the password the first time?
Because we need to generate the token.
It uses the GitHub API.
Yeah.
Ah.
We use the GitHub API to generate the token, and then we use it to create the repo.
If you already have a token from before that you somehow created
You
yourself,
couldn't use
then
it with this SSH certificate, it's not possible.
No.
okay.
No, it's not possible. Now, actually what might be possible is to give the user a link to click and authenticate in browser. We should do this in the future to support two-factor authorization anyway.
Yeah, we have a request to support two-factor authentication for GitHub, so we'll work on that for now, it works in a way that it asks you a password the first time, then it creates the token, and then it uses the token to authenticate.
I have a question.
Yep.
Is that functionality available in the graphical user interface as well?
Yes, it is. So the way it works is that, oh, I'll get to that, right? And another example is that when you have a project, say at GitHub, and other contributors want to contribute, you probably want them to be able to, for example, fork your code, because this is the way that GitHub works. You fork the repo, you do your changes, and then you create a pull request. So we have this prepare functionality, which is supposed to work in a way that there is existing project somewhere out there, and you take it, you check it out from its source control, and you set up an environment for the development of that project locally. So I guess prepare is the good word for this use case, because it's really only this use case. So what we want to do in the future is that we actually want to have like prepare assistant for specific projects, for example, OpenStack or OpenShift or something like that. For now we have this custom assistant, which really just takes GitHub URL or pretty much any other URL of a Git repo. But if upstream is on GitHub, you can also use --GitHub fork, which is the functionality I've been talking about before. So it basically creates a GitHub fork, checks your source code from the GitHub fork, and also adds the upstream repo as a remote, so you can fetch the new sources from there and merge your code with it. Questions for this? Yeah. So, how do we do this actually? How it works? I'm getting to that question slowly now. So, we have DevAssistant core, which is basically a set of APIs, so to speak. And DevAssistant core interprets assistants. The assistants are what we call our plugins for DevAssistant. These are written in a DSL. I know that some people don't like our DSL.
What's the DSL?
It's domain-specific language. It's basically a subset of a programming language or a markup language that makes sense for the domain that you're working on. Okay? So, on the next slide I will talk about what we want to do for people that don't want to learn and use our DSL. By the way, do any of you people know our DSL? Okay, so only people who actually work on this. Okay, so we have DevAssistant core, and we have command line interface and GUI, which is written in GTK3. And so the core has an API, and basically the command line interface and the GUI like sit on top of it. The core itself is pretty much independent of the UI that user chooses to use, so everything works the same way. For example, if you run an assistant and it needs to ask you for GitHub password while running, then basically what it does is that if you run the assistant on command line, it will ask you on command line, just tell you, hey, please give me GitHub password, and you can like type it, and that's it. And if you run the same assistant in GUI, it will actually pop up a small GTK like window, which will like say, hey, please give me your GitHub password. And there's like OK and cancel and something like that.
Well, actually, it doesn't say that. I just tried it, and you get a very small window that means say git 3 dots and something, and there is an empty box, and you either have to resize it, or here it just guess what actually is going on.
Was that Fedora 20 or 21?
20.
20. Shouldn't have happened.
Did you report it?
I just tried 5 minutes ago.
So
Please report.
yeah, please report it. It should. It doesn't really do that on my desktop, so maybe I don't know.
Okay.
Works for me.
Yeah, it works for me. Close, works for me. No, please report it. Like, this can happen. Sometimes something changes, maybe in GTK or something. I know you guys don't break API at all, but there are things that are like mystery.
How does it do privileged operations? Like how does it install packages system-wide?
Yeah, so the question is how does it do privileged operations? So the thing it does is that it basically uses Polkit to run the command. So basically Polkit
YAML install? Does it use YAML to install packages?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. For RPM. Yes. And so the way it works is that basically you give Polkit the whole command and Polkit just runs it under sudo. We also, so we're using Polkit, and I think it's the right way to do it because Polkit can also work purely on command line, or it can show you like a window where it requests the password. The way is that we will really need Polkit to show the whole command, because right now Polkit only shows the executable that it's running, but it doesn't really show the whole command, which is like for systems that you might have gotten from anywhere, it's not optimal because you don't really see what Polkit is trying to run.
Yeah, it's been bash.
Yeah.
Couldn't you use package kit? Isn't that? You can be brutally honest.
So we could use package kit for this specific use case, right? But we can't use it for like enabling service. So we need. What I'm saying is that we use Polkit for all sorts of different stuff. So
I'll argue that using YUM in PK exec is kind of it's going to be fragile.
is
Because
it?
YUM's going to be asking you things like, do you want to agree to GPG keys and that kind of stuff?
We make it not ask any questions. No, if Jan would want to ask, like if we want to report GPG keys, it will fail.
So talk to me about package kit.
Okay, I will. Okay. Yeah. So that's it. Any more questions, comments for this slide? So I've already said that we have our own DSL, and some people think it's nice and some don't. So you don't know it, so
I think it might be worth adding that this DSL is a subset of YAML.
yeah, it's a subset of YAML. What? Ansible has got two. What? Right. So people want to use their favorite language to write a system. They want to use Python, Ruby, Node.js, whatever you can think. What?
COBOL.
COBOL. Okay, we'll think about that too. So right now we're thinking like, can DevAssistant support custom scripts, basically something that is executable and can be run as an assistant? Well, the fact is that there's no point using DevAssistant if the assistants can't access the core functionality, because the core has like all the hooks to create a GitHub repo or fork a GitHub repo or install dependencies on the platform and ask for privileges in some way. So if the scripts, if the executable assistants would be just like, here's a script and I run it and I don't care what's in it, there would actually be no benefit in using DevAssistant for that, right? So what I think we're going to do, and I'm not entirely sure, I would really appreciate your comments on that, is a solution that I call ping pong. And the way it's supposed to work is that basically, if there will be an assistant that is not written in the DSL, that is written, for example, in Python, then, and it will be executable, then basically DevAssistant will run it as a sub-process and communicate with it through pipe, and they will send messages back and forth, so like ping pong. So the assistant will actually be able to like do some computing and stuff, and then it will want to create the GitHub repo. So it will tell DevAssistant core, hey, create a GitHub repo with this name for me. So DevAssistant core will create the repo, and then it will say, okay, I've done something, here's your result. And the DevAssistant will
just
continue.
offer a DevAss API from your core.
Or DevAss API, yeah, that is possible as well. So there are like, I already have like several ways how we could achieve this. I'm not yet sure what we will use, but thanks for the suggestion. We will think about using DBus. So who would want to write their assistants in their favorite language, like COBOL? Would you want that? Yeah. Who wouldn't want to do that? Great. Who wants to learn our DSL? Oh, great. Really? Oh. No, thank you guys. So I've already talked a lot about what DevAssistant can do for you, and I've shown some use cases. So let's just wrap it up. Wrap up the use cases, not the presentation. So for developers, you can basically ease your pain. As I've shown you the Docker develop. These are actually like mod and prep are actually like shortcuts for modify and prepare. So we have these historically. You can use any of them. They work the same way. It's just like, so if you like use DevAssistant a lot, you don't want to type the whole thing again and again. So I've already talked about Docker. This is basically the use case that I've been talking about too. It's like you can prepare prepare environment. In this case, it means just check out the source code because it's like a custom project that DevAssistant knows nothing about. So this will just check out the GitHub repo from the fork and do the stuff that I've been talking about. It can also make you a coffee. And
which machines are supported?
I'm not telling. And what we would like to have is, we would like to have like the assistants that would really prepare the development environment for specific projects. So like, I've been talking about this like OpenStack, OpenShift kind of development environment. This is what we would like to have. So hopefully someone will approach us and say, if you do approach us, we will help you with writing the assistant though. You just need to send us like, hey, when we're like preparing environment for our project, we use this and that, and we'll try to create the assistant for you and with you so that everyone can benefit from that. We don't require you to actually do all the stuff because like we want to get the use cases to the assistant easily. So, question?
Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about there, but I don't think you need to elaborate on it a little bit. So like, what you're talking about there too is like you have some open source project and you want people to be enabled to actually do contributions to that open source project, setting up an assistant so that it'll prepare the environment to work on that project. So the one you were working on a little bit was it Cockpit? With Steph?
Yeah. Still working on it. Yeah.
Right. So so if you wanted people to be able to work on Cockpit, that's what that kind of scenario is about. So you can do like Python, but you can also do like a project like Cockpit.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that. Thanks. So also, we want people to be able to share assistants really easily. So share the plugins, get new plugins when they are released, something like that. So there are some facts on these slides about like our plugins architecture and stuff like that. So the assistants have like a non-trivial directory structure. We have the assistant itself, which is one YAML file for now. It may have an icon that will show up in GUI. It can also contain some templates or scripts depending on the type of project or type of use case. It can also, every assistant can also have like an arbitrary number of sub-assistants. So basically, just telling people to download tarball doesn't really work for this. It would be like complicated, you know, how to extract that, how to see where my assistants are, what assistants I have, and something like that. So, and also you want to do versioning and updates and something like that. And we want people to share easily and happily ever after. So now the next slide, and I'm still like seeing the people here. I'm a bit scared to push the next button because it's like a bit controversial. Let's see that. So you might think, and I thought that at first too, that RPM is everything we need, right? I don't think so anymore, for quite some time now. The first reason for that is that we want our packaging to be OS independent. We already have contributors from Gentoo, from Arch Linux, from other distributions. Mint wants to use DevAssistant as a tool. They have a proposal to use DevAssistant as a tool to basically make their like default basic installation like a full-fledged like development environment. So I really like RPM. Don't laugh. I really like it. It's great, but it's not great for all use cases because we don't want to kill the community. If we said we only support RPM-based distribution of our plugins, we basically limit ourselves to RPM-based distros, right? And we don't want that. We want community. We want to work. We even want to work on macOS. We even have some people who use DevAssistant on macOS and actually sent us some patches.
Wow.
So how cool is that?
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
If someone is watching, thank you guys. So I've been thinking about this, and I've come up with this really complicated sentence. What it's trying to say is that no project that has like distributable plugins, like talking about languages like Ruby, which is Ruby gems, Python, which is Python packages, talking about stuff like Ansible, Ansible Galaxy, Puppet, what is it called, Puppet Central or something like that. Each of these projects has their own mechanism of distribution, and they have it for a good reason, I think. These are the reasons that I mentioned on the previous slide. So we don't really want to rely on distro package manager. We want to be able to repackage the plugins as RPMs for downstream Fedora use. So we're basically we've already had like some proof of concepts and some pre-alpha stuff of this, and what we're really trying to do is to make it easily convertible to RPMs, maybe even automatically. So we really want to support like the downstream distribution type of use cases, but as I've said, we don't want to like kill the wider community. Do you think it makes sense, or are we completely off?
It definitely makes sense.
Perfect.
I would like to point out that PackageKit that Richard mentioned earlier is actually an abstraction layer on top of those distro package managers. So it supports RPM and Debian's Deb and a bunch of other formats. So that could be one answer to that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I guess on the flip side, possibly surprisingly, why does a plugin need to be an RPM? Surely a plugin is just a collection of files, like a tarball or something?
Yeah, well, so basically the way it will work, and I hope we will make this like working for the next DevAssistant release, the plugin will basically be a tarball.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you contribute.
It will just have like some required structure and some metadata file inside, but it will basically be a tarball.
I don't think that's insane at all.
Well, I mean, I think the point though is that you want, it's not whether it's a tarball or an RPM as far as a file format, it's the, you want all the other package management-y stuff, right? Like updating and knowing that it's already installed and those kinds of things, which you don't get from a tarball, right? It's the parent that you're trying to solve, right? And that's the...
You need to be able to update between different plugins. So update plugin between versions and stuff.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Do you want to have dependencies between plugins? I know, this is a hard question.
I know. We don't.
Okay.
But we will probably do.
From the user perspective, we want it, but from our developer perspective, we don't want it.
I know. But the thing is that
as soon as you have a nice implementation with dependencies, give me a call.
So, one more point. There are actually, like, if you look around, there are actually some things that are reusable, and we've been looking. So, for example, I've been thinking so we'll have like this web central index of DevAssistants. So every time people think about this, it's like, hey, this might be insecure, right? So there's a lot of security stuff to think about. So, but the fact is that there's a thing called the update framework. I don't know if you people heard about it. You guys heard about it?
The what? Sorry?
The update framework, TUF. So what it's supposed to do is that it's supposed to be like a security framework for these types of repositories. People from the Python package index are thinking about adopting it to mitigate all sorts of security threats. So it's supposed to be like pluggable, that you can basically plug it into Python package index or Ruby gems or.
Well, what does it do? Does it sign every plugin?
It's about signing and all sorts of checking after downloading, like checking checksums and stuff like that. So people usually think that like security could be a huge problem, and I agree. But for example, there is this solution for this specific use case. So yes.
Just about RPM. Anonymous code, but is it possible to use RPM somehow locally? I mean, not the global system-wide RPM database, but to create something like a local database for DevAssistant and like a local instance of RPM.
That's
Mac.
That's very much right to my question, which was plugins per user or are they per system?
Oh yeah,
both.
So both. The way we want to do it is that basically, and I'm actually copying what we did with Ruby in Fedora 17 here. So what we will do is that you will have plugins in your home directory that will basically be installed by you as user from the DevAssistant package index. Then you will have global assistants somewhere in user local that will be installed from the index by root.
So from someone that's tried to do that with RPMs and have dependencies between user and system stuff, that's a world of pain.
Yeah. Yes, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you have dependencies between the system version, the user version. You update the user version, which requires new system versions. It's a world of pain.
Yeah.
As we are doing the same on the Eclipse side, I can assure you, you'll get all of white hair.
Okay, so we might rethink this. Yeah.
So have you looked at there's got to be at least 5, maybe more, 5 popular universal package manager attempts. What's the one called? It's like Kabrda.
Yeah.
Is that the one?
Package, installer, there's quite a few.
Yeah. I was going to say there's like 5 ones that I think made it like out of the garage, and then there's probably another 1,000.
Yeah, they're really popping fast these days, right?
Well, Canary, whatever it's called, was an RPAT thing about 5 years ago.
For this, where you've got system, user, dependencies, updates and stuff, liststaller might be one to look at, which is like it's like an auto package but better type thing, which kind of, like you say, got out of the garage.
Yeah, we'll have a look at that. Yeah, we have like our very simple implementation for now, which really doesn't take care about dependencies for now. So it's been pretty easy up until now. But if we'll go into dependencies, we'll definitely have a look at something else too. So thanks.
Well, what those do, like a lot of those do, is they package for the platform, but they have a universal format that you start from, and then you can kind of say, okay, here, make me some RPMs, make me some devs. I assume they don't support homebrew yet, but
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the suggestions. Yeah. So we'll have what we call for now DevAssistant package index. We have like pre-alpha version of that. Hopefully alpha soon. The packages are really simple, just tar basically. Installing means unpacking these files into the, well, I'm talking about the current implementation. That's assuming we don't change to actually something else. And I've already been talking about the update framework integration for the package index to make everything really secure and not actually putting effort into that ourselves. So that's pretty much everything from me. Questions? Yes, please.
So I'm assuming you have some support for Java already, right?
Some, yeah.
Okay. So do you have Maven support in the way you support VIP for Python?
So we have an assistant that basically creates a simple project based on Maven.
Okay.
I didn't create it, so and I don't work with Java, so I personally don't really know what extent of things it does.
Well, we don't get Java dependencies from Maven, right? We only have Python, Ruby,
yes,
Node.js.
Yeah. For now, we don't. DevAssistant can't install dependencies from Maven Central.
Okay.
Is it called Maven Central?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So. Yes.
So I didn't really get the point of the DSL. I'm sure you love it, but I didn't really get it. What does it buy you?
So the thing is that when we started creating DevAssistants, we actually wanted to do assistants in Python because DevAssistant is written in Python itself. The problem was that people came and say, well, I don't want to write anything in Python. I'm not touching Python. So
you moved to something more obscure to
exactly what we
Come on,
to make Python look better in retrospective.
So, but the fact is, the DSL is really like very concise, and I personally really find it useful. I like using it, and there are people who like using it. But as I've already said, we know that people have been coming to us and saying that they don't want to use the DSL.
I think it might be quicker for a lot of us to learn Python than it would be to learn another DSL.
Yeah.
And more useful.
Yeah. So as I've said, we also want to think about these people, so we'll be doing that hopefully for the next version, like support for Python.
Although mildly on the flip side of that, right? The DSL it's meant to be kind of a one-off, right? I mean, you're not going to be, if you write 2 assistants a year, right, that's probably a lot.
But the fact that it's a new language puts me off straight away.
Yeah.
Can you show an example?
Just to make sure no one really.
I'm actually not sure that I don't.
And if everybody runs out screaming, then you probably know that the DSL is not a good idea.
Can I get everybody to run out screaming anyway?
Absolutely, London, absolutely. I enjoy that, actually.
But come on, if Ansible uses that, then it's got to be good, right?
Right.
So does Puppet.
Well, I can
Puppet
imagine that having a Python
cool.
project, being extended in Python is a pain in the long run.
I mean, if everybody's using RPM, then it can't be bad, right?
Well, and you haven't really gotten anywhere in the computer world unless you've written your own DSL and your own package manager.
So this is actually a DevAssistant that prepares development environment for DevAssistant. Hey, come on, no one's running. Come on, you can do better.
My eyes!
So yeah, this is it. Yeah. That's it.
That's all?
No.
So why this assistant doesn't fork developer assistant plugins as well? I was missing that. Because you have two repositories.
Yeah.
The assistants are in different processes. Just 5 minutes ago for the dev assistants, I was puzzled that I couldn't see.
It's happening here.
But yeah, but the
no, Git grep doesn't work on that.
Come on, I love Git submodules. They're fun.
Okay.
Always funny to fix
Well, they're not that hard if you understand that they are homomorphic endofunctors in separate space.
Was that like swear words? I don't know, I just like Git submodules.
License, copyrights.
Excuse me?
If there's no license, there's no copyrights. Debian will just like blow a gasket.
I'm sorry for that.
You can write it in comments.
Yeah.
Actually, the package we implemented has metadata, and there is license field as well, and outer and stuff like that.
Yeah. You can actually like write a comment and put the license in it, and just didn't do that or something. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much everything for me. So any other questions?
Any British screenshots?
British screenshots. Okay, I just.
What can go wrong?
Run it and
I like demo.
And use master.
Use master, yeah.
That's it.
glib threads in it.
Nice graphics.
Excuse me?
Glib threads in it. That's wrong.
No,
no longer do that.
Don't look at that. You didn't see that.
Hey Slavik, run a Flask project in Python. That works. No, I tried it on your Python and I'm absolutely sure it works.
So
you possibly already have Foobar on GitHub.
Yeah, I think I have it on GitHub. So I think I have all sorts of testing names repos on GitHub because
so we can try, so we can see how it fails. So gracefully, I mean.
I don't know if it like. Does it fail gracefully? I don't know.
Pretty gracefully.
If you consider traceback gracefully.
Now we don't have
So this is why you're the most active user in GitHub this month, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you can switch to debug, so you can actually know what is being done right now. Yeah, so we don't have
it's debug output, right? So it looks awful.
Yeah.
That's what it's for.
Yeah, that means that it's not found on the system, so it's going to be installed. So this is the Polkit.
Pin bash.
Yeah, but that's a feature of Polkit. You actually can't have anything else right now.
I'm not sure Pocket was designed for this.
Come on, you could show the whole command line.
Are you online? Are you online?
Probably not.
Definitely not on VPN.
Oh yeah, definitely not on VPN.
Whoops.
But it seems to do something.
Well, of course, it takes your YAM repos you have defined, so I mean, that's a configuration thing and it works.
Doing live demos as I did 2 weeks ago at Oscon, yeah, it takes a long time. let me make up some things to say while this is going on.
We know you're talking. Hey, it works.
Yeah, right. But actually there's a bug for it.
I don't know, is it clickable? It's not. Oh, it is. It really just opened. I'll show you.
And you can run manage py run server to see that we didn't really just put something there. It really works.
Oh, go on,
it's 14 seconds ago.
Don't push it.
So it's an easy way how to create a GitHub repo.
Yeah.
All kind of things, yeah.
In 10 steps using all the components we have in the system.
Okay. So
does it use systemd?
Well, it uses it when you run something with Docker, so it uses systemd to enable the service. Yes. So that's it.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.